Okay, so let me continue our discussion for this afternoon, for this day, to be exact. So let's proceed now to what are the types of health prevention. So let me rephrase the question. It is health prevention. So there are three types of health prevention. We have primary health prevention, secondary health prevention, tertiary health prevention. So let's discuss first what is primary prevention. When we say primary prevention, it involves health promotion and protection. Meaning to say, it intervening before health effects occur. So in primary prevention, your task now is to promote and to have safety protection of each person that you will dealing with. Second is secondary prevention. In primary, it is very contrast to primary prevention kasi in primary prevention, you all now promoting the health education that you have. You are now promoting it for the better protection of them. But in secondary prevention, you will be focusing now on involving screening and in early diagnosis. So meaning to say, in the secondary prevention, you are now in the stage of early diagnosis. You are now in the stage that you have to identify the disease of the certain person, or you have to identify the disease in the earliest stage. So meaning it's very important to know or to diagnose it as early as we can, because so that we can have a plan to make. So third, we have tertiary prevention. So since we've already done screening, and since we've already done knowing knowing the disease of the person, we are now in a tertiary prevention, which you can manage the disease post diagnosis to slow what is the importance of tertiary prevention. Dito mo na kasi ginagawa or minamanage yung disease. Either you will be ipaslow yung disease to be affected by the person, or literally to stop it na mawala talaga yung disease to the person. So that was the types of health prevention in health education. So moving forward, so what are the different approaches to health education? There are three approaches that we have in health education. To introduce that one, let's have the slide. So these are the approaches to health education. As I've said, there are three. We have individual approach, group approach, mass approach. For individual approach, you can eventually introduce or can be separated it by counseling, clinic consultation, or on-site visit. Yes, in individual approach, you can eventually share it one by one. Meaning to say, you can share it your means of explanation by the means of counseling. Next to that, we also have group approach. In group approach, you can share your knowledge or you can share your ideas by the means of lectures, group or panel discussion, and workshop seminars. Yes, you can share it to the group of people or to the mass number of people by the means of lectures, seminars, trainings. Yan, pwede mong eventually you can deal with that, or you can have that one in a group approach. Lastly, we have mass approach. Mass approach naman is dealing with the media or the platform that we will be having. What are those media or platform? You can share the information from radio to TV, newspaper, printed materials, or even in the internet. That is why I've said in mass approach, you are now having the information in the platform or different platform. What are those? It can be internet, or it can be a newspaper, it can be printed materials, or it can be radio and TV. For radio and TV, you can have it as an advertisement. For newspaper and printed materials, you can have it as a information. And for the internet, you can post it if you want to share and to give idea about health education. So that was the division of the three approaches of health education, from individual approach to group approach, and lastly to mass approach. Okay, so let's define individual approach by its pros and cons. Yes, when we say pros and cons, it is the advantage and disadvantage of the approach. Of course, let's start with the advantages. The advantages of individual approach is credible. What do you mean by credible? So meaning to say, when we say credible, it is plan. Plan is one that might actually work. So it is eventually believable. Other word for credible, it is believable. Yes, for individual approach in counseling, you can share naman your ideas about what is happening to your counselor, diba? So that was the advantage of individual approach. Next is permit two-way of discussion. Yes, eventually you cannot, yeah, the discussion itself is not chaos or not destructive enough for you to listen because dalawa lang kayo ang nag-uusap, your counselor and you that na ginagawa yung counseling. So that's why it is permit two-way discussion. Thirdly, we can be motivational, influential, and supportive. Yes, upon the counseling kasi you can have advices and the counselor will give you a certain solution about the problem that you have, and the counselor also give you an advices for you to proceed what you will be doing in a certain situation. And lastly, we also have most effective for teaching and teaching, care, and helping. Yes. Kasi in two-way discussion, it's easily to have a communication if you and the counselor lang eh. Kasi there is hindi mo na iisipin pa yung mass number of the participant. The counselor itself will be focusing in you itself. So, meaning in teaching, she or he can teach you well. In care, he can give you care because isa ka lang. And of course, in helping, all of the advices and literally the knowledge of the counselor will be sharing to you because it is a two-way discussion. But meron din tayong disadvantage with regards to that. Yes. What are those? We have expensive. Yes. It's very expensive. Why? Because, as I've said, it is a two-way discussion, meaning to say, you are individually being counseled by a counselor. So, it is very expensive. Next to that, we have time consuming. Yes, kasi time to time, you are having a weekly time with your counselor. Next is limited audience. Yes, with regards to the communication with the peer group, walang magagawa na ganyan kasi you have this two-way discussion. You will be discussing with your counselor and you as a person that having a problem that being discussed in your counselor. So that was the disadvantage and advantages of individual approach. So if there's no question, if you have a question, you can leave it in our GC. So let's proceed now to another slide. Let's move forward. Of course, if there is individual approach, there's also an advantage and disadvantage of group approach. So let's start first with a group approach. For the advantage of group approach, we have familiar, trusted, and influential. Yes, kasi in the situation of group approach, like I've said, you will be dealing with the lectures lang. With the lectures, with the seminars, and with the training. So eventually, the group of people that you will be dealing with is kindly not stranger kasi before you will be starting the trainings, you will be introducing yourself pa man eh. So in that time that you will be getting to know each other, you will be building a trust. Okay. Next to that, provide motivation, support more than media alone. Yes. Kasi in a group approach naman kasi, you will be dealing with the other person. Hindi, unlike with the individual approach, you will be dealing with the counselor lang itself. But with the group approach, you will be dealing with another person. So, meaning to say, the motivation that you will be having, the support that you will be having, it's not only with your counselor, but also with your peer or with the group mates that you have in a certain seminar or trainings. Next is can be inexpensive. Yes, kasi bakit? You have a number or mass number of participants. Meaning to say, the money, the expensive, the money that you will be paying to the lecturer or to the counselor is not big or expensive kasi madami nga kayo. So there are a lot of participants that will be joining. So your expensive yung money na ibabayad nyo ay hindi kalakihan or hindi kamahalan. Next to that is offer shared experiences. Of course, ito, number one to. Kasi after the trainings, after the lecturer will be discussed a certain topic, you will be eventually having an activity like open forum. So, but by open forum, you can discuss your ideas, you can discuss your emotion to your other group mates, to your other peer. By that, you can eventually share it to another and you can get also another idea to the other other group mates. So that's why it is advantage. Next and lastly, reach large intended audience in one place. Opo, kasi nga as I've said, it is includes trainings, seminars, or it includes lectures. Meaning to say that the lecturer itself is not focusing on one only. It is focusing on a lot of participants kasi it is a group approach. So, even there is an advantages in this approach, of course, there is also a disadvantages. What are those? May not provide personal attention. Opo, it is eventually a disadvantage kasi in individual kasi yan eh, yung tinatawag nating may personal attention. Kasi if you want a personal attention, go with the individual approach. But if you want to know with the other ideas, if you want to share your problems to the others, or you want to share it to the others so that the support and motivation that you will be get is a lot, you have to go to group approach. Yun yung disadvantage lang ng group approach is kasi sa group approach hindi talaga mapo-provide yung pang personal yung attention, yung pang personal yung problem. It is the lecturer itself will be focused on the group, not only in the individual. So that's why it's called group approach. Next to that is needs approval from organization. Opo, in conducting an seminar or trainings, of course, the organization will be or the lecturer itself will be having magpapaalam muna, or they're having a letter to the institution that they will be conducting a certain seminars or certain trainings here in the institution para the information or para the reminders or the instruction is isa lang. So for example, if the certain organization like for example Red Cross, before going to Dr. P. Ocampo, before having the training in Dr. P. Ocampo, may letter yan sila in accordance to the formality of the trainings, formality of the seminar. So, mag-undergo pa rin tayo with the formality. So, we will be having a letter to be wrote by the Red Cross team for us to know that they will be having a seminar or trainings here in the institution. Lastly, can be costly and time consuming. Yes, kasi bakit? The seminars can be at least lead with the whole day, 2 days, 3 days. In a 2 days, you will be having lectures. From the last day, you will be having workshops. So, meaning to say, it is costly consuming a time. Consumes your time a lot. Okay, so that was the advantages of group approach and disadvantages of group approach. So if there's no more question, let's proceed now to another slide. We also have disadvantage and advantage of the mass approach, particularly on the different type of mass approach. We have newspapers, radio, TV, internet, and that. Okay, so let's start first with radio. For radio, we have advantages like range of intended audience with known listening preference, yes. Opportunity for the direct intended audience involvement. Distribution is inexpensive. Advertisement can be inexpensive. Yes. In radio kasi naman, sorry with that. So, let me continue na lang sa radio before we will go to newspaper. So in radio naman kasi the cost of the pay that you will the cost of the money that we will be paying to the radio is not expensive at all. So that is the advantage. One of the advantage of it is and one of the coolest thing of it, it can be shown in advertisement sa radio. Pwede yon ilagay sa radio that the certain information that you will be want to share to the others is by the advertisement. But if there's an advantage, of course there's a lot of disadvantage again. Number one, reaches smaller intended audience than TV. Yes. Kasi bakit? Sa modern life, sa modern situation natin nowadays, iilan na lang yung tao na nakikinig ng radyo. 'Di ba? Tama? Most of us can get the information or news in platform like internet, or we can get the news in television. So that is the disadvantage for radio. Next to that is public services ads runs infrequently and at low listening times. Oo nga. With regards to advertisement, not all the time that it is clearly to be delivered. So that's why it is inadvantages of the mass approach or the radio itself. So next to that, many stations have limited formats that may not be conducive to health messages. Opo. Meaning to say, not all the radio has capable to produce your health messages. So meaning to say, meron pa ring tinatawag na rules and regulations sa radio. That's why some of your information that you will be want to be delivered in the radio, nababan siya because of some issues. So kaya it is inadvantageous. So, it is disadvantageous. Sorry with the word. Okay, lastly, we have difficult for intended audience to retain or pass on material. So, yun na nga, that hindi massive yung nadi-deliver ng radio kasi nga, lahat tayo, we will be getting our news in the television and in the platform or internet. So that was the advantage and disadvantage of mass approach. So now let's go with the newspaper. For newspaper naman, for the advantage, reach broad intended audience rapidly. Why? Kasi in newspaper, every day newspaper will be going to in public. Lahat yan ibibigay. So massive yung pag-deliver ng message sa lahat ng tao kasi home to home, house to house, yan siya nagde-deliver ng newspaper. Can convey health news break thoughts more thoroughly than TV. Yes. Kasi, yun na nga, some of our information in television cannot be shown because of some issue, but in newspaper, pwede siya. Lastly, it intended audiences the chance to clip, reread, contemplate, and pass along marshals. Opo. Pwede natin ulit-uliting basahin ng newspaper. It is very understandable naman and that in newspaper we can eventually return or flip the page that we have that we want to read again. Unlike in radio or television, kaisa lang yung advertisement. Swerte ka na that if yung babayaran nyo is a week, you will be delivering the advertisement a week. You will the television or the radio will be delivering your information a week. Pwede na yon. But in newspaper, pwede siya kahit araw-arawin. With the first release ng newspaper with your information, pwede siya araw-arawin basahin what is the information talks about. So that was the advantages for newspaper. So let's go to the disadvantages. For the disadvantages, larger circulating papers may take only paid advertisement. Yes, even though you can release a lot of newspaper a day, hindi mo isa pa rin yung nababayad sa iyo with regards to your advertisement. Isa lang. So that was the disadvantage of it. Exposure is limited only to one way. Yes, it is the exposure of your advertisement or the exposure of your information is only one way. What way lang? By the means of newspaper. So luckily lang if you want your advertisement is in the headline. So hindi man din yun mangyayari kasi in the headline we have news and your information lang naman is and your advertisement lang naman is regarding promoting on health education. So literally it will takes at least small amount or small peak of the newspaper lang. So that is why the exposure is very limited. Lastly, article placement requires contact and may be time consuming. Yun na nga. Before the newspaper will be releasing, dapat a lot of it will be done before it will release. Unlike the radio and the television, you can eventually give it to them. Like for example, can you release the advertisement like in this hour, in an hour like that? But in a newspaper, masyado pa siyang matagal, time consuming to be releasing kasi you have to make a quota kasi that the newspaper you should release. Dapat this amount of news number of newspaper will be releasing today. So maghihintay talaga. Unlike to radio and television or even the platform, even an hour, pwede mo siya i-deliver. So that was the disadvantage and advantage of newspaper. So let's proceed to another one. We have television. Television, it is actually similar to radio, reaches potential the largest and widest range. Combination of audiovisual is effective in emotional appeals and demonstration of behaviors. Can reach low income audience. Specific programs can reach specific intended audience. Opportunity for direct intended audience involvement. Yes, in advantages of TV, number one is it has a combination of audio visual. So that is very creative one, right? So kasi in radio, you will be listening lang through the information. In newspaper, you can visualize it but not moving. But in television, you can visualize it na nagmo-move yung advertisement. So it's very creative, it's very entertaining to watch from the audience. So that is why it is advantage of a television. Of course, if there is an advantages, there is also disadvantages. What are those? Advertisement is expensive, yes, to produce. Running infrequently and in low viewing times. Message can be obscured by commercial culture. Some station reach small intended audience. Promotion can result in huge demand. Difficult to retain or pass on materials. Yes, one of the big problem of having an advertisement in television is expensive. Yes. Kasi bakit? You are now giving your advertisement by a video. You are now giving your advertisement by a clip. Unlike to radio, you are now giving it by listening or by having a voice mail. While in the newspaper, you are literally writing your information. But in television naman kasi, you will be giving the clip. So that's why it's very expensive. Number two problem naman is the time. The time that your advertisement will be produced. Sabi ko nga kanina, you are very lucky na lang that if your advertisement or you have the so-called much money to pay na yung advertisement mo mag-last in a week. Pero kung in a one day, parang it's a glimpse of an eye na, boop, tapos na yung advertisement ko. Parang ganun. You cannot literally said that your advertisement is can show in the different country. Pwedeng makita ng lahat ng tao. Kasi parang glimpse of an eye lang in this hour, labas yung advertisement. Hindi mo naman masasabi na lahat ng tao nakakapagnood ng television. That is why that is one of their advantages. Okay. So that was the advantages and disadvantages of television. So now let's proceed to the internet. For the internet naman, the advantages, reach large number of people rapidly. Yes. Updated and disseminated information, control information provided. Tailor information specifically for intended audience. Can be interactive. Demonstration can be by audiovisual and graphs. Can use banner advisement to direct intended audience. Yes, this is an advantages of internet. So, from along the tree or the past mass approach, internet is very conducive to have. Why? Kasi in internet kasi, you can eventually spread the information in a lot of person depending on how the followers that you have in a certain page, right? So, meaning to say, if your page is very famous, the spreading of the information is quick. Aside from that, if you have the so much so-called followers that can be share the information, quick lang yung pagbigay ng information. So, a lot of people talaga ang makakakita sa internet. Next to that, is you can control, you can edit your information. Once that is, you can see that your information is may mali, you can edit it agad-agad. But in the advertisement of the television, once you've passed it in a certain social, to the certain channel, hindi mo na yan may edit. Once the advertisement be shown in the television, wala na. But if you have it into the internet, you can literally edit it. So that is the advantages of internet. Aside from that, you can interact with the internet by the means of comments, by the means of share. You can eventually communicate to your viewers. You can eventually communicate to your followers. So that was the advantages of internet. So of course, there's disadvantages of the internet. Can be expensive. Yes. Why? From the means of siguro with the means of your connection that you will be paying, it is expensive. Many people do not have access to internet. Yes. But nowadays naman in modern life, I think 75% of the person or the people in a certain place or a certain country uses technology. Even 3 years old 3 years old person can use phone. So, ngayon talaga, I think internet is very good in information. But the number two, I think, disadvantages of internet, is the fake news. Yan din naman yung pinakamalaking problema ng internet nowadays. Sorry with the word. Nowadays. Kasi yung pag-spread ng information na hindi naman totoo. So, intended audience must be proactive. Oo, yun ang nga sinasabi that eventually that not all the people is having an internet may require monitoring. Opo, time to time, you will be monitoring it. So, it's time-consuming na naman. May require maintenance over time. Yes. So, in your page naman kasi, some of the followers that you have can be hacked in your page, or your page would be hacked by the some followers. So you will have to pay attention to your page time to time. So time consuming na naman siya. So that was the disadvantage and advantage of internet, particularly in mass approach. Okay, let's proceed to how we can select the appropriate approach. How? By the means of, first, the goal and objective, cause, target of the group, current interests, health needs, setting and activities, and how can the approach use most effectively. So, meaning to say, if you have these steps, if you follow these steps, you can eventually know how to select your approach in a certain information. So, that's it. So, that was the end of the lesson 1, which is health education. I hope that you understand my lesson. If not, just ask a question in our GC and just leave a question in our GC. Thank you very much with your time today. I really appreciated your listening, and I will be take a look with the views that the video will be having. Thank you very much, and God bless.